Who am I? Where do I come from? What or who made the earth? When was the earth made? What is the purpose in life? He that questions much shall learn much. Questioning is a demonstration of one's level of thinking, individuality, and intelligence. By asking questions, a cosmos of knowledge can be opened. This method of learning by asking is an integral part of the human nature, and every man that is renowned in the science research field made findings based on questions they had. From time immemorial, a keen interest and widespread curiosity about the origins of the earth and other existential questions has perplexed every generation. Take for instance the Age of Enlightenment, where European politics, philosophy, science and communications were radically reorientated as part of a movement referred to by its participants as the Age of Reason, or simply the Enlightenment. Enlightenment thinkers in Britain, in France and throughout Europe questioned traditional authority and embraced the notion that humanity could be improved through rational change. The Enlightenment produced numerous books, essays, inventions, scientific discoveries, laws, wars, and revolutions. The American and French revolutions were directly inspired by Enlightenment ideals and respectively marked the peak of its influence and beginning of its decline. The Enlightenment ultimately gave way to the 19th century Romanticism. The Enlightenment's important 17th century precursors included the Englishmen Francis Bacon and Thomas Hobbes, the Frenchman René Descartes, and the key natural philosophers of the scientific revolution, including Galileo Galilei, Johannes Kepler, and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Its roots are usually traced to 1680s England, where in the span of 3 years, Isaac Newton published his Principia Mathematica, and John Locke his essay concerning human understanding in 1689. Two works that provided the scientific and mathematical and philosophical toolkit for the Enlightenment's major advances. The German philosopher Immanuel Kant summed up the era's motto in the following terms: dare to know, have courage to use your own reason. Locke argued that human nature was mutable and that knowledge was gained through accumulated experience. Newton's calculus and optical theories provided the powerful Enlightenment metaphors for precisely measured change and illumination. There was no single unified Enlightenment. Instead, it is possible to speak of the French Enlightenment, the Scottish Enlightenment, and the English, German, Swiss, or American Enlightenment. Individual Enlightenment thinkers often had very different approaches. Locke differed from David Hume, Jean-Jacques Rousseau from Voltaire, Thomas Jefferson from Frederick the Great. Their differences and disagreements, though, emerged out of the common Enlightenment themes of rational questioning and belief in progress through dialogue. The High Enlightenment of 1730 and 1780 centered on the dialogues and publications of the French philosophers Voltaire, Rousseau, Montesquieu, Buffon, and Denis Diderot. The High Enlightenment might best be summed up by one historian's summary of Voltaire's philosophical dictionary, a chaos of clear ideas. Foremost among these was the notion that everything in the universe could be rationally demystified and catalogued. The signature publication of the period was Diderot's Encyclopedia of 1751 and 1777, which brought together leading authors to produce an ambitious compilation of human knowledge. It was an age of enlightened despots like Frederick the Great who unified, rationalized, and modernized Prussia in between brutal multi-year wars with Austria, and of enlightened revolutionaries like Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson, whose Declaration of Independence of 1776 framed the American Revolution in terms taken from of Locke's essays. It was also a time of religious and anti-religious innovation as Christians sought to reposition their faith along rational lines, and deists and materialists argued that the universe seemed to determine its own course without God's intervention. Locke, along with French philosopher Pierre Bailly, began to champion the idea of separation of church and state. Secret societies like the Freemasons, Bavarian Illuminati, and the Rosicrucians flourished, offering European men and a few women new modes of fellowship, esoteric ritual, and mutual assistance. Coffee houses, newspaper, and literary salons emerged as new venues for ideas to circulate. The French Revolution of 1789 was the culmination of the high Enlightenment vision of throwing out the old authorities to remake society along rational lines, but it developed into bloody terror that showed the limits of its own ideas and led a decade later to the rise of Napoleon. Still, its goal of egalitarianism attracted the admiration of early feminist Mary Wollstonecraft and inspired both Haitian War of Independence and the radical racial inclusivism of Paraguay's first post-independence government. Enlightened rationality gave way to the wilderness of romanticism, but 19th century liberalism and classicism, not to mention 20th century modernism, all owe a heavy debt to the thinkers of the Enlightenment.